We can kind of take an extra 15 if we need to, but we definitely want a break so everyone can get where they need to go by the noon hour for lunch and whatnot. So let's just start. We'll go ahead with reviewing of existing board policies.
Chairman,
Oh, yes.
I just have one question before, well, two things, but one, the reasoning to put this into a policy committee instead of, a work session for the board, considering these guidelines and these policies don't really have anything to do with the district, it only has to do with us as a board. Would it not have been more appropriate to put it in that than this, so that everybody has an equal vote?
Well,
Instead of a committee setting?
I think what we'll do is we'll start here and we can definitely take it to a work session. I think the plan is to go and have it into a work session after we kind of discuss here. There will be a part down here where we'll talk about some operational board policies and guidelines. So we're hoping to get the input here as to what people may think we need to work on and then go into a work session altogether. Does that make sense?
Yes, and then the second thing I have, because these are active, correct, these are active guidelines, active policies. When I was going through it and doing my research, the creation of the board standing committee has very, membership on the committees has very specific, outlines as to who's supposed to be on these committees.
So are you looking at board policy,
Creation, it's guidelines.
creation
guess
and
it's
operation
in.
of board standing committees?
Right, and it
So-
says on there that we're supposed to have an NCEA representative, elementary, high school, Natrona.
So we're gonna totally get to that one because it is a lot of work.
Well, I agree with that, but because it's active, do we have them here to do this? Because we're acting as a committee, and these are an active committee policy.
Yeah.
And it clearly states we're also supposed to have, representatives from the community that have no connection to the district, and do we have those? That's my concern, is that we're supposed to act.
I do believe we have most, but I'm gonna turn it over to the superintendent.
I just want to, I believe how that got started, and it is still in there. It's when we did, well, I'm gonna call it IBAC, and we had somebody, a representative from all of the groups in all of our meetings, not just this one. And it became cumbersome, and it changed, and obviously we did not change the policy.
Right.
But it hasn't been used for several years in that way, because we've done away with it.
But it is active.
It is in there, and, so we were in error and not looking at and changing.
Right, so, and I understand that, I know that, I think some of these are not, like the Parent Community Advisory Council isn't in existence, but what of the groups that are listed in here that are active, are they here, or have they been notified and noticed? And then secondly, it says up here, that we are supposed to have 3 community members at large who are not affiliated with any of the previous list of stakeholder groups. And they're supposed to be here, and if we don't have them, well, we have an audience. We can pick from there, as your discretion, Chairman, but we have to operate within that framework because it's active.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair Alvey, trustee Smith specifically, there are 2 different sets, and Mrs. Mason can weigh in on this one as well. There are board policies, and the board policies are actively going. In addition to that, there were guidelines, and Trustee Walsh had talked about the guidelines that were put in place, and some of the guidelines in there need significantly work. So for example, there are 2 of the associations that do not exist anymore. Actually, there's 3 associations that don't exist anymore. So that's one of the tasks. I know we had Chair Christopherson and Chair Alvey of this committee are going to go through and rework each of those guidelines. So the guidelines are not a standard policy as in a board policy. They're not a guideline set by the board of trustees. That was one of the intents, was to review them, because the PCAC, long before me, I don't know how many years ago it was, the last decade probably, ceased to be the IBAC we talked about. So there are several things in there, and even talks about committees under the guideline that said to be determined. Well, those committees have been determined in the guideline. The names have changed. There used to be a human resources committee, there used to be a business services and budget, and over time, trustees have adapted the standing committees, but they didn't go back and review, revise, and edit the guideline. So that is very much the purpose of this, and talking with the policy chair is to work the guidelines in the policy committee, work the policies that they're needed, and then I know Chair Christopherson is wanting to bring it into a full work session as well. So So that's the intent. I know NCEA, they're still an association, they are here. The agendas are made public as well. The PCAC, it also identifies how they will be identified, so it's not as simple within the guideline, you grab someone out of the audience and pull forward, but it identifies them and how they will be identified as well. So that's the purpose of this work group right now with trustees, because these are truly your policies and guidelines, and then your purposes are we work those and go forward through this committee and through the policies trustees have asked.
Chairman Howard, so it's my understanding, based off of the history Superintendent Jennings gave and Trustee Walsh, that we're going to loosely follow this guideline until we redo it. We're not going to follow it.
Yes, and we can work on it today.
Okay.
Chair, trustee Smith answer your question. The way the current guidelines are written, don't exist. So I don't know how you put them into play if they're not in existence. So
Well,
that's
three
really-
members at large still exist, and she can call on them at any time.
Well, it's trustee Alvin, it's your.
It's her discretion.
Right, it is my discretion, I'm not going to do it. This is a guideline, we're here to work on this today, we'll be bringing that forward, we will get to that point. So, I will start by reading the purpose statement. Of course, we probably want to know why we are here. This is just something simple that of course exists to help us have something that we, understand as to why we do the things that we do as a board. The purpose of these written operational guidelines is to make each member of the Board of Trustees in Natrona County School District Number 1 aware of the manner in which the board agrees to operate internally. Operational guidelines are designed to indicate how the board intends to conduct itself. They help individual board members by making the group's expectations clear about how to function as elected members of a school board. These operational guidelines may be adapted and changed from time to time by a majority agreement of the board. Internal operational guidelines of Board of Trustees. So without further ado, we will start with Board Policy 8100, conflict of interest. I will turn this over to Superintendent Jennings if he will share this with us, present it, and then we can discuss it.
Chair Alvin, trustees, had asked me to look at the policy and then bring in full comment, and then, my role, I'm not a trustee, obviously, superintendent, but what I do is facilitate you through the policy as far as what it is, and then trustees, obviously, as you go through, you review them, trustee Alvin, you can go in one at a time and ask for comments, questions, and maybe adjust them, or go through all of them and then come back and work through them, so good. So the first one that trustee Alvin is asking to bring forward, these are all of the policies, I think it was 8100, conflict of interest. This policy also aligns to state statute, 16506 and 16618, those sections of statute where a trustee would have to declare a conflict of interest if it existed with their role as a member of the Board of Trustees. That was adopted in 1997, last reviewed in 2000. There are no rights with it, there are no standard operating procedures, it's still aligned, but a conflict of interest acting board member would have to be declared. It talks about it in January, but you see that also happening during any normal board meeting if there's a conflict with a specific claimant, or if you'll see a trustee state that they're going to abstain from that bill or from that.
Okay, perfect. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns about this? Anything that bothers you about this? And then I will ask staff, is there a recommendation going forward for this policy? I think this one's pretty easy, self-explanatory. As he was saying, even though it does say in there January, we kind of abstain as we throughout the process. Okay, I think we will go ahead and continue on then. We will continue with board policy 8110, code of ethics. This one's a little bit lengthier. I hope everyone had a little bit of time before they got here to review this one. I appreciate this one because this helps remind us again as to why we're here and the work that we hope to do within the community and for, the students of this district. I don't know if you want to completely go through it entirely or. Right, yeah.
So Chair Alvey, board policy 8110 was adopted in 2000, and it specifically talks to as a member of the Board of Trustees, Board of Education, you represent all citizens of the school district, and you recognize that there are certain responsibilities and ways that you're going to interact. And I won't go through each one of them, you have them to look at, they've been out there. But really, when you look down through them, it's how you're gonna work together. And number 7 specifically, it talks about, what you will take into consent of endeavor.
I would like to probably move number 7 if that's okay.
Yeah.
Chairman, now, can we start from the beginning, cause I have some comments on.
Could you speak up? We can't hear you back here.
Can we start from the beginning of the policy and work our way down, because I have some.
Absolutely.
Earlier part too.
Why don't you bring us in? What would you like to start with?
On number 2 of the beginning, where it says that the public expects my first and greatest concern to be in the best interest of each and every one of these young people without distinction as to whom they are or what their background may be. That one, it somewhat conflicts with number 7 of 7, so you have to flip over. And so I just thought either we adopt, either we cross out one or combine the two, because they're kind of separated. And that other, number 7, is to recognize that it is as important for the board to understand and evaluate the education program. It's the next one. To bear in mind under all circumstances that the primary function of the board is to establish the policies by which the schools are to be administered, but that the administration of the educational program and the conduct of school business shall be left to the employed superintendent of schools and his professional and non-professional staff. Those two either need to be combined and reworded, or
So number
taken
2,
out. Number two.
and then to bear in mind, we need to be.
Yeah, those two kind of are similar.
They are.
I'm not making that connection somehow.
I apologize, I don't. Because number 2 states, as you had said, that the public expects my first and greatest concern to be in the best interest of each and every one of these young people without distinction as to who they are or what their background may be. So referring to us realizing that we were, for the entire good of the district and not just
Right.
for, select students or groups of children. And then the other one, to bear in mind under all circumstances, the primary function of the board is to establish the policies by which the schools are to be administered, but that the administration of the educational program and the conduct of school business shall be left out to the employee superintendent. So while we do get to establish and create those policies, the administration and the enforcement of those is left to the superintendent and the educational staff within those schools. I'm not sure how those two go together.
Well, my thought is that one states that it's our greatest concern, and that we should be concerned about that, and then it's our primary responsibility or our primary function. I would just like to see number 2 go and just have it do what our primary function is. Our concern isn't as important as what our function as a board is.
You don't think one of our greatest concerns should be for the best interest of each and every one of the students that are in the district, regardless of their background?
I don't think our greatest concern outweighs or is equal to our primary function. Our primary function as a board should take precedence, because that's what the state statute tells our primary function is, and that's my only thought.
Yes, Thomas?
So you can have a primary function of creating policies, but then within the scope of your concern being that it's for each and every child with differing backgrounds. So that's how I see the connections. I don't see how they conflict with one another.
Well, then, if that's the case, then I would prefer to put the two together and put it as our primary function, and then a subsection under there to that, because it just reads better, it's more, it's put together instead of separated in the policy, that's all.
Okay. I will write that down as a recommendation, that would. Yeah, sorry, I'm asking a question that I don't know, I'm just wondering how that's working. In terms of, taking that and like putting it into a draft form and then bringing it back for us to see.
Yes.
Trustee Alvey, trustees, there are 2 ways that you can do it. One is this can be actually work through it and write it right now. The second way to do this has been occurred, quite a lot with this committee, is sort of a recommendation, to staff, to actually work and bring it back, and the trustees will come back.
So what do you guys think?
That's your-
We could just put, the number 2 would still stay how it is and then just take this portion and kind of bullet point it under
or you take number 2 and put it under, as a subsection of number 7, either one.
I think,
So, well,
yeah, I think it should be that we keep number 2 where it is and put number 7 under it personally,
I agree.
so.
I'm the same way. When I was way back when I was running to get elected, I had a bunch of bullet points, and my number 3 was, always keep in mind the interests of the children, and the teacher came up to me and she says, why isn't that number 1? I'm like, yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, it's always been number 1 to me, it's like, what's best for the kids, and to eliminate number 2 would be just so it needs to stay at the top.
Okay.
I'm wondering why it's number 2.
And I would agree with that, so we could just, complete that today, right?
I agree, yeah. So keep number 2 the way it is, and then put, bullet point number 7 underneath as a bullet point number 2.
Chair Alvey, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can continue to work the way you are as a committee. On the informal side of it, we could do a motion, second, and have the members of the committee vote to do that. It's up to you. Proceed on that one. Most committees, at the end of the day, there'll be a recommendation, maybe there'll be a motion, second, and a vote for the committee to the board. But right now, we're working through the discussion.
Okay, well, I think that works for everybody, we'll go ahead and just do that.
So, trustee,
Oh, I'm sorry. I motion to put, okay, not,
Chair Alvey, just
okay,
for
sorry.
clarification.
That's right, I'm not.
What you're saying is taking bullet seven and making the bullet point number.
It's number 6 of number 7.
One, I heard, I've been, number 7. No, so that's.
Okay, Superintendent Alexander.
Chair Alvey, trustees, I would just say that, in reading through these, the first, 6 seem to be a bit philosophical, as then when you get under, number 7, they're more action oriented. So certainly we can move those around, it just would need to be the will of this board understanding that, when you look through those and how the document is set up.
Okay. Shall we continue? Number 4, and maybe because it's philosophical, it doesn't, but it conflicts somewhat with the internal operation, public relations, so on that policy, the internal operations, public relations. So this one says that my fellow board members and I must take the initiative in helping all of the people of this community to have all the facts, all the time about their schools, to the end that they will readily provide the finest possible school programs, school staff, and school facilities, but, and that's talking about speaking out publicly, but on internal operation guidelines, public representation, it specifically designates the chair or his designee is the official spokesman for the board. The chair and or the superintendent or the designee will present official board decisions to the public and the press. Each board member has the right at any time to make a public statement, but when speaking to the public or the press, individual board members will make it clear that they are giving their personal views as trustees rather than a representative of the board. Because Superintendent-elect Angela Hinson said that this is more philosophical, I would think we should incorporate some of that portion about how we can't speak as an official board member in this section as well, so that we keep those guidelines clear. As to when we speak publicly, we're speaking as our own individual citizen, not as a board, because only the chairman or the PR person can keep that clean.
Okay, I understand, yes.
And also, a lot of these have, superintendent or his designee. I think that needs to be updated.
Yeah.
So that it's his, her. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, trustee Schmidt. Do I have any other comment about that? I understand what you're saying about the idea that one, I guess,
Do I have any staff recommendations for that one by chance?
Trustee Alvey, trustees, there are two documents in there you're working from. You're working from board policy, which is, this one specifically is around code of ethics for board members, the guidelines. And so when you start, you're blending them together, you're creating a document that is different from what is intended. Absolutely can do that. But one's a policy and code of ethics. And you'll remember in Mr. Farmer's presentation, there's a land code of ethics and a lot of philosophical statements in there about, and there's a lot of statements on how you're gonna, as board members, are going to act and work forward. So this is a policy and a code of ethics for board members. The other one's the guidelines. That's up to this group if they want to start blending those together, but they are distinct from the operating guideline to the policy and other ethics.
I don't necessarily wanna put them together at this point in time. I think my biggest concern, so I've been on this board a while, and I like for these to reflect what we have been doing. And I know, what those are. I mean, I get myself in trouble all the time for talking, but I also know that I'm not the official spokesperson. So, and I think that's part of the code of ethics. That, and yet we still have the right to say, as board members, what we need to say. Yeah. And I think when we start mixing code of ethics, we should have a separate page with guidelines. That's my personal opinion, okay? So we can look at the ethics by themselves and then the guidelines. But that's just me.
And if we don't decide on anything today, we are gonna come back and visit these. I appreciate you just throwing it out there, and we can continue on from that one. So let's go ahead and just continue on, because I agree, we have board policy, we have guidelines, so to mix the two, it is, nice that they are separate at this moment, but it's something that we can continue to look at, or.
I just look at it as a consistency factor. And if you can duplicate it in both and not be overstating it, but. And we'll move on from that one. Number 6, I would like to cross out "are kept free and strong." The whole policy reads that I must never neglect my personal obligation to the community and my legal obligation to the state, nor surrender these responsibilities to any other person, group, or organization, but that beyond these, I have a moral and civic obligation to the nation, which can remain strong and free only so long as public schools in the United States of America are funded by public monies. And so I'd like to take out "are kept free and strong" and put "are funded by public monies."
Can I ask why?
Because it is a moral and civic obligation, if we're going to expend public monies, to make sure that they are defending the United States of America. And they stay strong and free. And so I just think that, and "are kept strong and free" is a repeating with, but I think that we should clarify that these are public schools, public money, and so I just want it, I like it in there.
I don't have much to say, and it's just a word change. Does anybody else have anything that they?
It's strong.
I don't think it really, necessarily matters either or way. I understand your reasoning behind it.
It's a duplication, because it says "which can
Right,
remain
yeah.
strong and free," and then you put it at the end. I'd like to take it off at the end and put "are funded by public monies." Because it is funded by public monies.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot today, but, I read that as, sometimes we worry that public schools are not kept as free and strong as the nation. And that's why it's stated that way. And so we could add the public money, but I think we ought to leave the free and strong in there, personally. Does that make any sense at all?
And what it, and are funded by public money. I do like that emphasis, I know it's a repeat, but, Trustee Schmidt, I don't know if you heard, but, so long as public schools in the United States of America are kept free and
Well, they are funded, well funded with what we have.
While funded.
Yeah.
How does the board feel about that?
Okay.
I think if we have like a, we'll just go around to give a thumbs up.
Fine with me?
Next budget. Staff, is that what your recommendations you made? Okay, perfect. Mr. Schmidt, I continue on with.
Well, yeah, in the next section, I don't know where you want to, but the second one,
Oh, in section 7.
on section 7, where it says to work with my fellow board members in a spirit of harmony and cooperation in spite of differences of opinion that arise during vigorous debates of points at issue. I just like to take out a spirit of harmony and cooperation and put to work with my fellow board members, in spite of differences of opinion that arises during vigorous debates of points of issues. Spirit of harmony and cooperation. I'm just not a squishy person. I think it's just understood as adults that we work together, and so I just like to take it out because it seems squishy to me. I'm sorry, it just is.
I am squishy, and I would like to leave it in.
I like the way it's worded. I think it's a good reminder that, you know, regardless, we need to try to work together, to the best of our ability, in cooperation and harmony with one another, in spite of our differences. I don't see the problem with it. I appreciate that you're willing to admit it's just not your thing, but
I mean, if we wanted to, it's less squishy, we could do respect and courtesy.
I do like those
I
ones a
like
lot.
that too.
Okay, so to work with my fellow board members and respect,
The spirit of.
in the
I mean,
spirit of
unless-
respect.
it wouldn't really be
Guideline
spirit at that
emotions.
point, but just
What's
with-
guidelines on emotions?
So to work with my fellow board members with respect and courtesy is like.
Yeah, I like that.
I like it too. That's fine.
So let's switch.
Say it one more time, trustee Myler.
So that'd be to work with my fellow board members with respect and courtesy. Yeah, it's
I
like.
think it's-
Otherwise-
Chairman Kyla,
Yes.
I think it's just kind of a repeat anyways. I mean, you can keep changing the words, but it states here to work with my fellow board members in spite of differences or opinions that arise during vigorous debate of points at issues. The adding anything before spite or fluff words, and so if you just can, I mean, the spirit of harmony is kind of like hippie-ish feel to it.
Should we not?
But then the other one is just
hippie-ish?
replacing it. I knew you were gonna have something to say about that. But then you're just replacing it now to just update the words. I think it says everything it needs to say, and we just taking that whole sentence out, and it just gets to the point.
In spite of differences of opinion that arise during vigorous debate of points of issue, we just need to work together.
I mean, it says to work with my fellow board members in spite of differences of opinion that arise during vigorous debate of points at issue.
I think there has to be a level of respect and courtesy between us as working individuals within this, you know, within a board. So I mean,
Do you feel like if you have to actually spell it out how we're going to be
yes,
paid with each other?
I do. think I would
You
have
don't
to
think,
spell that out.
as adults, we can figure out that we can, the word work? You think we would,
No, I agree, we should find
we have to define the word work together?
Yes, I do, but trustee Walsh is going to say, and then trustee Howard.
No, I agree, I don't even mind spirit of harmony and cooperation. I mean, it says the same thing as, respect and courtesy. I think that's how we should work, with harmony and cooperation.
I guess my thing is tone of voice.
Right.
That has something to do with it, because, you know, you guys aren't squishy, that's what you were just saying, and I kind of am, and I really, get a feeling when people have a certain tone of voice, it bothers me, you know, and we can disagree, but sometimes I feel like people are disagreeing and they're really mad, and sometimes they stay mad all the time, or it sounds like they're mad. So I still think that respect and courtesy and, harmony and cooperation is not a bad thing. Just because we disagree doesn't mean we have to be unpleasant to each other.
So we will be defining how we speak to each other in the right
What's wrong with that? I mean, you know,
I just specifically
Because
say your
we're-
tone of language, but I do think it spells out that we have respect for towards one another.
Well, I'm just saying that we can work with each other, just because we have, we still have differences.
sure.
But I don't think we should control each other on how we are heated at the moment, or we're in our I'm gonna take the heated back, and I'm gonna use the vigorous debate. That's my opinion. I think it says everything it needs to say here. Take out the extra controlling words and leave it as it is, and my opinion.
If I can add a little color, I just think of our founding fathers when they were debating on the floor, doing our constitution. I'm sure there was some heated tones. And I'm sure there was some pretty tough language, but they all walked away with respect. Yeah, there was respect,
That's true,
and
there was.
they came up with the document, so this kind of thing is a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and
But
there
then
might have
again,
been duels
push.
afterwards. Right. I don't want duels.
Well, I don't think we're gonna have rules.
I personally liked how Thomas changed it to respect and courtesy, but, you know, I appreciate all the input and everything. If we, you know, would like to change it or, Chair Christopherson?
I like respect and courtesy.
Okay.
I'll give a little color too. I've been on the board 9 years now, and through many different chairs, and many different boards and mixtures, and there's been some very heated comments, but afterwards, you know, it's always been with respect. Just this last year, that there's been some times when there's been no courtesy at all, and ambushes and whatnot, and that's what we're here trying to work this out. Trying to figure out how we can all work together as a team. And I think respect and courtesy is what's lacking. You know, that's what we need.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Could you please read that?
It says, so to work with my fellow board members with respect and courtesy in spite of differences of opinion that arise during vigorous debate of points at issue. How does that sound? Okay. I know we're gonna continue on. Are there any more in this one trip that you want to bring forward?
You had mentioned you had some, my other ones aren't until the very end, so.
Okay.
If you wanna do, if you had other questions on the ones before that one, or do you want me to do?
Yeah, those ones are gonna come at the very end when I want to do, recommendations. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. Do you want me to do my last one, or do you?
Oh, yeah, do
Okay.
your last one.
On the very end, finally, to strive step by step toward conditions for most effective school board services to my community, I would strike out in spite of teamwork, or in spirit of teamwork and devotion, and put into, by making public education focus on the preservation and perpetuation of our representative democracy. Not, and then strike out as the greatest instrument.
So read it exactly how you
Okay.
want it to say.
Finally, to strive step by step toward ideal conditions for most effective school board service to my community by making public education focus on the preservation and perpetuation of our representative democracy. Well, and it kind of ties back into my public monies, because this is a public school paid for by American tax dollars. Our focus should be the preservation of this country and our representative
So
democracy.
start at by making, one more time, read it, by making.
By making public education focus on the preservation and perpetuation of our representative democracy. Strike out as the greatest instrument for that.
And spirit of teamwork and devotion are gone.
Yes.
Well, I'm not necessarily sure we should strike out in spirit of teamwork and devotion to public education, but we can make it all work together somehow. In the spirit of teamwork and devotion, public education, by making. Sorry, that was so long. I think I'll write it down somewhere. No, here. Yes.
I'm not sure I see the need to change this. Sometimes we're just, wordsmithing here, and I think this says what it needs to say.
I mean, I guess I don't quite get it, because we all know that public education is funded by public dollars, and I don't know if that even needs to be said.
Oh, I'm not saying put that in there, I'm just saying, as the reason we said it, when we talked about putting it in on these other policies of public, that our focus should be the preservation, our education, our public education should be the focus on the preservation and perpetuation of our representative democracy. The reason behind it is because it is a public institution, and so.
I guess I don't understand your, opposition to the spirit of teamwork and devotion to public education as the greatest instrument for the preservation and perpetuation of our representative democracy.
I think it's too wordy, and to use a common term, it's kind of a word salad. I'm trying to make it more succinct, that, we're trying to make it straightforward, that we are striving to do a step-by-step, ideal conditions for the effective school board service to the community, and we're making public education focus, our focus is on the preservation and perpetuation of our representative democracy. That, all the rest is adjectives. And I'm just trying to make it more succinct, not as wordy and empty.
I guess we could just say, community, as the greatest focus. Right, so it'd be,
Yeah, the service to my community, and it's a comma, by making public education focus on the preservation and perpetuation of our representative democracy. That should be our sole focus on, as far as that's going. Other schools may have thoughts of making, private schools, religious schools, that kind of stuff.
So the change makes it or captures the kind of the meaning at the end for me, where public education itself is in, which there's nothing wrong with that, I'm just trying to get it out there, but that public education is meant for preservation, perpetuation of our representative democracy, right? Whereas right now, it's just, hey, we're going to strive to let people know that public education is the greatest instrument. Like, public education is what is, like, public education is a thing, the instrument that preserves and perpetuates service to democracy. How it reads now. Whereas with the language change, it sounds like, hey, public education is to preserve. I don't know if that matters, but it's just kind of how I'm understanding language change.
Right.
So that matters.
So is it changing the meaning?
Yeah.
Well, it does, if I may, the current one implies that it's the greatest, meaning the only, instrument in preserving the, preservation and perpetuation of representative democracy. I don't think that's necessarily truthful. It can be a tool, it can be one of, and that's why I'm saying, because we're a public institution, our focus should be the education of that, of preserving our representative democracy. So I'm just kind of changing.
So you just change it to as one of the greatest.
Good, but I don't know that it's necessary.
There you go.
I would say more just the focus.
There you go.
but it reads better the other way.
I just think our focus should be that
That
preservation.
changes the meaning, because we are a board, elected officials, and our duty is to the kids. We're here to figure out the best public education those kids need. That's what our duty is, you know? So, I don't know who it's our, saying that it's our job to save the democracy. Our job is to get kids to graduate with good education.
So are you saying that this shouldn't be in there? Because you're saying if our job is just to educate, and
Well,
that's our
like
number
that.
one
It's not the job of the board.
This is saying our number one job is to preserve and perpetuate the
The board
representative
doesn't
democracy.
educate the kids.
So are we saying we shouldn't have that in there, and we should maybe change the whole thing to just say we're
Well,
supposed to
I think
educate?
it's in there before, this is just another
Just another version of it?
another thing that we do.
Right, that's how I'm reading it, and I keep rereading it over and over again.
Now with trustee Schmidt, then do we need this one? stated about being.
We totally are, but I mean,
Yeah, so, public education is, I understand where you guys are coming from in a way, because it's the thing that actually helps keep this country a democracy and keep it free. You know, there's no other country that's tried to educate all of its kids, you know, and it used to be a great experiment, and we seem to be the only ones that even come close to pulling it off. So, but I still don't see where there's a problem with the words teamwork and devotion to public education. I don't know, maybe I do think it's the greatest instrument personally, but it wouldn't have to be the greatest to me, it could be one of the greatest, like you said.
right, that's true.
So, is it redundant? I mean, we mentioned earlier on in our philosophical side that it's a moral civic obligation to the nation, so we referenced that.
Yeah.
Is this just throwing it in there again, being repetitive? And that's why I was trying to clean it up to make it slightly different, that this is our focus, but again, it can be repetitive, so I'm good with knocking it all completely out too.
Like Trustee Miller said, taking this off entirely.
Can we think about it some more?
I agree, yeah, thank you for bringing that forward, that's definitely something to continue to think about. In interest of time, let's go ahead and continue on to board policy 9100, board policy, board bylaws. This one's pretty cut dry and to the point. It just specifically states that we are an elected board of 9 members, elected by legal voters of our district. All members are elected at large to a 4-year term with 4 or 5 members elected every other year in conjunction with general election. Does anybody see issues with this one?
Only thing, should we re-adopt them, or is there any reason to re-adopt it now, because it's 24 years old?
I'm going to do that.
Superintendent.
Chair Alvey, Trustee Christopherson, that is something the policy committee can absolutely do. When you get to a point where your committee is going to make a recommendation, a motion is going to be forward, you absolutely can pick up these others, just as if you've done previous policy committees where you've revised or retired policies and made a recommendation to the full board to take action. So it very much could be one that is re-adopted going forward.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Board policy, 9110, bylaws of the Board of Trustees, procedure for approval of major curriculum and or policy changes. This one's also kind of short and sweet. It basically addresses that all items for consideration by the board should be received in writing by each board member at least 3 days prior to the meeting. And then, of course, a lot of the things that we do will take place in our policy, our board, subcommittees before we take it to our district board proceeding. Anyone further about this one? Trustee Schmidt?
I'd just like to add to it, the process with which we vote on things, so like in committee, we represent the information, we create the recommendation, and then we vote on it as a committee to bring it to the board. And then whether we do that once or twice, and then write out the steps for how the board receives that presentation recommendation. We discuss it, and then we have a first reading and a second reading vote. What that process is should be clearly written out.
I was gonna say, I just.
Because we have had conflict on that. Is this a first reading, is this an adoption, what is it?
That should be a reg then, right?
Well, I remember we did a guideline. I just got this recently. Will you take that one?
Sure, so, Chair Alvey, trustees, I would say that much like our, board policies are often followed by administrative regulations, in this case, I believe those are outlined in the guidelines and could be very specific, within those. And again, that guideline needs a lot of changing.
Was that listed specifically?
All the standing committee stuff.
Standing committees.
Yeah.
It would be operation based.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is, thank you, so our next one, our guidelines, the creation and operation of board planning committees. This one is definitely gonna need to be reworked, and that would be where all of what you just said would be placed into this one.
Okay.
As that one is reworked. I know that we have had both, creation and operation of board planning committees and internal operational guidelines of boards. Superintendent Jennings, we are gonna have kind of a rework of the creation and operation of board planning committees. Yeah, yep.
So trustees, that's the guideline, trustee Alvey trustees, what trustee Alvey is referring to is when you look at the creation operation of the board standing committees, there was very deliberate and very intentional how the committee structures were set up. And over the last 14 years, you can see that many of the committees, names of changes, changed. Those committees, through trustees may have gone away. There have been committees that were added, so the most recent was CCO committee was brought forward and then it was disbanded. And so trustees have had a lot of work around it. This one does. There's some technical side to it as far as when you look at the memberships of the committee as well. The SNCA, ESS, and the SEI no longer exist. It's now the Natrona County Classified Professional Association. The PCAC has not been in practice with the trustee Rush and trustee Howard for a very, very long time. And so this one does take significant work. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can work through it as a committee, step by step by step, each piece of it, or it can be drafted out with the current practices, current changes and brought forward for the committee to work from that starting point. That's completely up to your prerogative and how you want to do that.
I think we should have the draft brought forward, and that gives us a starting point ourselves.
Agreed.
Because we don't really know what change to do if we don't have a fixed edition.
I would like to go step by step.
Yeah, I agree, I have changes, I went through it already, reviewed my changes.
Okay,
So Chair Alvey, again, trustees, there's a couple of ways to handle this one. There's disagreement or split. All of these, this is just a recommending body. As before, the committee recommends to the full board, there's opportunity to do it there. So if it's split in a staff draft and the trustees want to look through, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can do it formally, as you've been doing, or you can move and have a motion on how to do it and work it through the board of the committee. That's your guys' call.
I'm just saying, what you guys wanna bring forward is, if you guys say something that they're already gonna bring forward, does that make sense? Let them rework it and bring it forward, and then you can say, this is what I think should be added in, or, oh, this is something that I thought was good, and you've already put it in here, so now we know. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, but, since these are board guidelines, I would like us to bring it forward first, and then if it's something that they would agree with, fine, they can take our input, because it should be us leading this, not the district staff leading us, who should be leading it. And so I'd like to put our input, and then staff can take it, rewrite it if they'd like, and then bring back a.
Welcome to make a motion if you'd like.
I'd like to make a motion and work through this
Okay,
individually.
we have a motion, do we have a second? Okay, seeing none, that motion has failed. Thank you. Yes.
Just for the process going forward, so that you guys know, you guys are gonna take all these bad names out of the thing, and it'll come back to looking at something like this. And then we'll look at it, what, in another policy meeting, or are we gonna do this in
Yeah.
our work session?
No, it'll be another call, yeah.
Trustee Alvey,
Can I just ask
trustee,
you-
to answer your question is, again, this is not staff providing direction. This is simply staff giving you, and we'll leave all of the, names in that you strike through. That'll be updated on what the current names are, as far as what those associations are in current practice. It'll be a stricken up document.
Correct.
Again, that's just, the past practice of this committee, and that'll come forward to you to work and add, delete, take out, whatever it is, as a committee, and then that'll follow the normal process through the committee for recommendation and then through the board for things. So absolutely, it's just to strike through, give you a starting point and input obviously direction on the whole thing.
So the staff is going to rewrite our operations before we can look through them, and then they're going to give us a recommendation on how we run our operations.
Not exactly, because, yeah, they're gonna fix the things that don't exist anymore, or the things that are definitely changed, so you can still keep your ideas, if that makes sense. They're just gonna give us a starting point.
Jen, they're gonna put down how we do it now, so that our current process is reflected, and then from there, you can offer your ideas for changes.
I disagree. I think we're very capable of going through these ourselves.
I think we are too, but I think they're also very capable of just making it reflect us, so that we don't have to spend a lot of time doing that, and then you can still come back.
I just feel it would be more grassroots for, you know, our current board, and this is something we can actually work through together and come up with something, and then they can write it up for us. But I think it would be really good for us to work through this together and to have harmony and courtesy going forward.
Touche.
Well, thank you, there was a motion, it didn't pass, but.
That sounds awful.
definitely continue to work on
Yeah.
it.
I'm a little confused for sure.
And you can sign, we'll go ahead and just continue on, creation and operation of, internal operational guidelines of boards. So I know this is one that we have kind of talked about in the beginning. I'm glad that we're finally here. So actually, is there anything on here that everybody has had time to look at, to take a second to agree with, disagree with? This again is kind of how we should work as a board internally. Yes, trustee Schmidt? You want me to start with that? Absolutely.
Cause I obviously did. I guess under vacancies, I think we should add, it says if a vacancy occurs between elections, the board will publicly advertise the vacancy, interview and appoint the candidate to fill the vacancy, and I think we should put in there, within 30 days of receiving the resignation, period, the appointment will last until the next election. All of these activities will be conducted in public meetings, and then we cite Wyoming State Statute 21-3-108, because it does say that in there.
So they're saying 30 days.
Yeah, that we have 30 days to fill from receiving the resignation, we have to appoint, so, and that's the state statute, I think we should include that in there.
Easy enough fix?
Yep.
Okay.
Trustee Hilton,
Yeah.
just one second.
Yeah, no worries. So, and appoint the candidate to fill the vacancy within a 30-day period.
30 days of receiving a resignation,
30 days. of
Period.
resignation period.
the appointment will last until the next election, and then cite the state statute.
All of these activities should be careful.
Yeah, that goes there.
And state statute, okay? Then take us on to the next,
Yes.
right?
The next one, I just think under officers, we should cite, should have the citation of the state statute 21-3-10. I don't know how we say it, maybe our attorney can say BI, in parentheses,
Okay.
each letter, but that clearly is stated in there, so I think we should cite the state statute for that.
Chair, trustees, trustee Schmidt, what I'm hearing you say is just like the state statute.
Yep. And I just listed it for you, so. Under evaluation, I think we should put something to the effect that in December, when we, have to do the annual review, or we should do an annual review of these guidelines. At that meeting, when we're citing when our dates are, and we're selecting our chair, I think we should either have it in the work session or at a meeting that we review these, because these are all very, very outdated as far as when they were adopted and when they've been reviewed. And so I think just as a procedural thing, every board member should review these once a year. And so I think we should put that in there under evaluation of these. So if we do need changes.
Do like a work session where we as a board will.
Yeah, make sure they're up to date, we're citing the right committees, any procedures, so that we don't get caught in a situation like this where we're, I think the most up-to-date one is 10 years old. The last time they've been reviewed, so I think we should do this on a regular.
So just putting in there that you would prioritize a December work session to Ms. Superintendent James. I'm just trying to work out in my head, is that what you're, like,
Yeah.
just right here under evaluation, basically putting in there in December, during our work session where all trustees, like, we devote a work session to going over our internal operational guidelines.
Yeah, I mean, I put in December, we should do an annual review of the guidelines and procedures the board operates under.
And that would actually fit in perfectly with like an election period, because you've had new board members come on, and you do a
Yes.
work session where you're
And
like,
that's it.
welcome, here's our internal operations.
And that's a technical person.
Yes, Chair Christopherson.
So yeah, I like that idea, cause this says the board will adopt a process, I don't think we've ever adopted that process.
Right.
So we're gonna have
To have a process, right, exactly.
Which is fine with me,
Yeah, right.
that's why we're here, because we
Well,
all
it's
need
like a good
to, we all need to have a process, so we all know what's going on.
And I like doing it in December, the first week after, like, the new election season, well, and December.
Yeah, I think we do that every December, because like you said, we've got some outdated terms and things.
And then you have a new chair coming in,
Yeah,
you have that new chair knows where to go and, yeah.
Right.
okay, I like it.
Yes.
Chair Alvey, trustees, there's two ways to go about doing this with the evaluation. The trustees have established in previous guidelines their standing committees. So there's two ways to do it. There's to do it either through a standing committee and then go into a work session. That'd be more of the traditional pattern of what we've done with policies, not guidelines for quite a while. Your traditional pattern has been to review, update within a policy committee and then bringing it forward, and it's a natural part of the work session to do that. So it could be language around using the established processes and committees and then within, it's on that kind of language to a work session. For 90 days. Just trying to remind, going back since I've been here, I'm the superintendent, as far as the boards really use their standing committees to do a lot of work and then bring it forward. We do get this. This is an example of that. But there is, I would think, there would be some interest to review their structure and the communities where we should have a place and work a few work sessions before it's all done. Just a thought.
I understand that process, but because it's so specific to the board, it's not a policy for the staff or anything. And in December, it would be the first meeting for any new board members after an election. And it's a light, our meetings are pretty light in December. I just think that would be a good time to introduce it, and it may be very quick, because there may not be that many changes, but that would be a good time to have a work session, work through it, and then we're all ready to go for that board meeting.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, I just think that's a simple, easy time to do it.
Yeah, I think some of our problems, probably just misunderstandings of how the board has been typically run in the past, and how you expect it to be run, and, you know, it's like, there's a big misunderstanding, so. It would help future boards if we could just all sit down and the first thing we did, just say, this is how we do business up here.
Is there any changes we wanna make and go forward?
And do it in a work session.
I think it should be a work session instead of a committee, so that the entire board is, cause in committees, we don't all have voting power.
That's right.
So that's why I think it should be a board, a work session where we're all equal and voting.
So this isn't in this, but I wanna talk about work sessions, this would be a good place to do it. Back in the day when I was first on the board, we had work sessions like this, we all sat around the table, we're more or less equals. And it got changed during COVID, so we set up on the king seat and on Caesar, sitting up there. I don't wanna be Caesar, right? I just wanna be a trustee, we're in a work session, so we're gonna try. Our next meeting, we're gonna be back in this room for a work session.
Just a reference, we had one work session, I think since we've been on the board, that we had the tables like this out front. And we had that, and then they switched it, and it may be a logistics issue.
It's really hard when we have this many people showing up, and we've been trying to work through that.
Right.
So we're gonna try it this time, see if it works in this room. But I wanna get us around the table.
I agree.
To have more good conversation like what we're having today.
Yeah, cause it's just that the work sessions aren't what we're setting up on that. So that's why we're trying everything we can to keep more harmony and.
Yeah.
Get more squishy.
What's that word when you like feng shui the furniture to get like a good vibe going? That's what we're doing.
Blasphemy.
Oh, yeah.
Feng shui.
Cheryl, I'm just clarifying, so the 30 days is to review the guidelines, correct?
No, the 30 days would be that would be how long for us.
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, the December, is to review just the
Oh, yeah.
guidelines. I wanna make sure I have it correct, yes, sorry.
Perfect, okay. Okay, trustee Schmidt?
Under public and staff input,
Uh-huh.
in the parentheses part, I would just like to take about out of there and put to no less than 3 minutes, so that we have a strict,
No
No
more
less
than,
than-
no more than.
No more.
no, I put no less than 3 minutes, so that if we wanted to change it in the future, but we're not gonna shorten it. Am I saying that right? No less than, that, a guaranteed 3 minutes or more is what I
think
wanted
the way
to
you're
be.
saying it is telling people they can talk for 3 minutes plus.
Well, and I want to give us that option. I know we put a 3-minute limit when we do it, but I don't want us to go below that 3 minutes. I want us to always maintain a minimum of 3 minutes in public comment.
I think about 3 minutes still stays pretty good then. That's hitting what you're saying, like about 3 minutes, I'll have at least 3 minutes.
Well, I think the word, to me, the word about, and correct me if I'm wrong, can indicate a lesson. And I don't wanna ever give an indication that we can lessen.
To me,
That
it's more, about 3
Yeah,
minutes
it's
or more.
more to me too,
Yeah, that would be really.
because.
But it doesn't say 3 minutes or more.
No
It just
more
says
than 3
about
minutes.
3 minutes.
Maybe we should just take out the about,
Yeah.
say 3 minutes.
Can do that.
Just take out about, say 3 minutes.
And this can be changed by future boards. So if
Absolutely.
they wanna change it to 2
Absolutely.
minutes, but for this group right now, it's
Mhm.
3 minutes.
Yeah, and that's it, so maybe we just take about out and just leave it at 3
Okay.
minutes, that's fine too.
Cut out about, make it 3 minutes.
Yep, I just wanna keep it there.
Okay, as appropriate, perfect. Flip the page over, travel, board of education, anything feedback with the superintendent. Be delegated to the attorney, transparency, respect, relationship to school staff, public communications, meetings, committees, conflicts of interest, and code of ethics.
The public communications, I think this might be better served if we combine it with public representation. Just because we establish a designee for speaking on behalf of, and that's what this is. If we leave it as a line item, but just put it together next to each other, but it just makes more sense
Okay,
if
so
we keep
just
it in
public
order.
representation and then right underneath it, the public communication.
If that's what you guys want, or
You
you
could
can
be
combine it.
the same, just noticing remind each other.
I'll take this last one and move it forward.
I put it under public representation.
Yes, Superintendent Jennings?
Chair, on the trustees, there's one board that has been different practice the last over 15 years now. And what's written in the internal records and goal priority setting. This one specifically says the board will set a review goals priorities annually and will support the work with the superintendent staff to develop a strategic plan to carry out the board's guidelines and priorities. So it refers there, the trustees, the goals and priorities have been identified within committees. The board of trustees has used the strategic plan. So is it the strategic plan and that one's updated every 5 years by trustees? Or are there other goals and priorities annually? That's a clarification point of what trustees want to do with this one. Are there additional goals and priorities annually, or is it the strategic plan for 5 years?
The strategic plan is obviously phenomenal, we're gonna get to many things, but not only that, but like the 37 would be almost too difficult, I think. I think the wording of this, cause we should keep it the strategic plan, but maybe this should be more like our goals and priorities as a board versus our board person. They will recognize each other and come right on.
Because trustee Alvey, we're gonna work with the superintendent to develop the strategic plan. So always call that your strategic plan.
Right. Just change the verbiage and make sure that it specifically states that we are gonna review the strategic plan, the goals under the strategic plan, as often as we do, which is 5 years.
So, Chair Alvey, I'll just say, so the board will adopt a process to evaluate its own effectiveness in carrying out operational goals and priorities, and a process to evaluate the superintendent in carrying out the district strategic plan, and then what I heard is each 5 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody hear that?
What was she reading?
So she
Evaluation. Oh, evaluation. I thought we were under goal priorities.
Oh, trustee Ryan.
So we're on constraints, I thought also wrote under the goal priority setting. So with that one, it does talk about goals priorities, we would also need to change that there from the board, so we'll set or review. Well, I guess it would have to be, the board will review the strategic goal, and, cause we can still review it annually, and then kind of go and create it, or however it might be every 5 years, or review again. I don't know how we want to do that,
Yeah,
we can kind of figure it out.
I think
I confused the two.
Right.
I think the goal priority setting should be just the strategic plan in 5 years, and then the evaluation should be us evaluating this, I think, so they're two different
Yes.
processes. Got it, okay, so we'll just move it up to the goal priority setting.
Okay. Great, thank you guys all so much for your wonderful input. We will continue on, and if nothing else in this, change goes. Next on our agenda, the operational board policies and or guidelines for consideration. So this is really gonna be a place, I know that some have kind of thought, what ideas does anybody maybe have to help us run more cohesively as a board? I know it's not always gonna be rainbows and flowers, and that's fine. I think it is important to have the debate, the discussion, good ideas and thought processes brought up, as long as everybody's heard and, understood. Does anybody have anything this time they are wanting to work on, like, better as a board? Appropriately, it might be how to, get chairperson officers' attention. Does that seem to be bothering any? And then raising your hand is okay, and that's what we've done.
I'm not fond of the thumbs up.
Okay.
Well, we don't do thumbs up. Yeah, we're talking
Well,
about.
I'm just, I mean, it is a pet peeve of mine, but that was just a joke. But, I mean, we didn't touch on this because it wasn't voted, to talk about it, but to, I would hope that we are going to go through and get to the point where are we going to be following some set of rules as in the operations, I think it's in, that the Roberts rules. And, in the beginning, when we were first brought into the orientation, to become trustees, we were told to get the book of Roberts rules. We were told to read them, well, it was suggested to get it by the attorney, and to read those over, and it also states, that state in here that we do follow Robert's rules. And as a new trustee, you would think that, that's what you're following. And I found it a little bit hostile with the group. When I'm trying to follow the rules, it says in the procedures, it says it in the policies, that this is what we're following, and then be told that we follow things loosely, we're not gonna follow those rules, and somehow I'm ambushing, board, meetings by trying to, just follow the rules. And so another part to that, when we do follow rules, we all get to be heard. And if we're following things loosely, you don't know which way things are going. And you're not gonna be heard. At the last work session, I did not feel that was a work session. I felt that was a personal, uplifting day. I did not come in here to talk about that. I came in to talk about what we're talking about here. This is what I thought that meeting was going to be. I do not appreciate not be able to vote on who comes in and teaches us, our procedures. And so in the future, I do hope that we all decide to, take on the Robert's Rules. It will keep us equal, it will keep us, being heard, and, that's what I have to say about that. So, I do like the idea of what, Christopherson said, the work sessions. I wanna make sure that we always have room for the public though. But this was a little bit more comfortable than sitting up there. I just wanna make sure that we're not giving one person more power than the rest of the trustees. We were all voted in. And, so we should all have the equal vote. I will repeat again, the Robert's Rules keeps us equal. I do want to suggest a parliamentarian, Tom Reeder. He's available and he would be great. He's the only parliamentarian in the state of Wyoming that he can come and teach us and work with us on our board procedures, so in the future we don't have any more issues that we have been currently having. And let's see here. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents. Yeah, and again, the thumbs up's not my favorite, so I will be waving my hand.
And like Terry
We'll
was
start doing this then.
Well,
thumbs down.
we only do it in kind of some of these subcommittees, and don't take it personal when we do it, because I'm pretty sure we'll probably
I
still
know.
do it, but it won't be like, we're only doing it because we want to. Chair Christopherson.
So, yeah, that's kind of why we got this meeting. I know I tried to go to you and ask you personally, then I got accused of some stuff, but we all have different expectations, and those of us who've been on the board for a long time realize that we utilize Robert's Rules of Order, but we're a small board, so we don't have to stand, and, I mean, if you go strictly by Robert's Rules of Order, it's very, very strict, and I would have to stand every time, you would have to stand and come to the podium, and so there's a lot of things that we've adjusted just because we're a small board. And, so we do, I completely agree with you. I need to know the expectations, because I had my expectations from 9 years being on the board, how it was run, and watching everybody else do it. Then you guys come on the board and you had your expectations, and we clashed. And that does nothing to help the kids. We need to figure out how to come together as a team. You need to be a valued team member. I'm trying to figure out how to make that work.
Okay, so I'm gonna,
I'm trying to figure that
Yeah,
out.
I don't know if it's a motion, because it's a policy, but I would like to, have Tom Reeder come, because he is the only certified parliamentarian on Robert's Rules, and he can adjust it to our specificity of the board. Because you're right, we don't use all of it, because it doesn't all apply to what we do here, but there is going to be specifics that will apply, and he will know that, because he's the one who's been tested, who's studied it, he knows it all, so, and he lives here in town, and we can contact him and have him come and give us a tutorial of, okay, this is what you would use to do this, to make these motions, and what would apply to your board. And I just think to be completely open and to be, I'm a rule follower, I like rules. They're guidelines, and that's specific, and since he's the only certified one, I think we should take him over everybody else. So I would like to see him come to work sessions.
So that's a motion, there's a motion.
Is that a motion, do you make a motion in the policy committee to bring
You
it?
don't have to do that. I guess a couple of thoughts of this is, what I'm hearing you say and watching us. So one of the things that we can, this is being staff, not staff, is, you have norms of how you do it. I think several things are stated that, are very important, is one is every trustee, all 9 trustees are elected officials, and we each have a voice and we need to be heard. That's one of the things that Robert's Rule of Order does do, is to ensure that people are heard. As a small board, and you had a training on this, and you can go as extreme as a parliamentary procedure gentleman all the way to what you had in the beginning. But there is historical context within this board that's important. And conversations that we've had, I've watched play out during, after the meetings, is to set up per the letter of Robert's Rule of Order, but there needs to be a common understanding and expectation of a small board. One of the historical ones, and this is for trustees to wrestle with, you set these for each other, right? You set these. Mrs. Mason can walk through, yeah, you are bound by state statute. You use Robert's Rule of Order as a tool potentially, as a small board on how you're going to operate. So one of the historical rules, it's not written, it's written for the standing case, you and I talked about it, Trustee Schmidt, is the idea where the board chair, in consultation with the superintendent, creates the agenda for the next board meeting. That's the prerogative of the chair to do, and then trustees would work through the chair if they're going to get items added when they go on there and that type of thing. That's not written, that's a guideline. There might be a guideline that would be followed. There are different types of guidelines. What does it mean for a small board to take a motion? Historically, this committee, or this board of trustees has taken a motion, second discussion, and then a vote. Okay? Small boards can act differently to be a single motion. So those are the guidelines I think that you need to, as trustees, and as a whole trustee, go forward with. Identify what are those guidelines that we're going to live to and operate from. And you set those going forward. And I think that's so how we're going to interact and how we're going to treat one another. So when Chair Christopherson's running the meeting, not that he has no power as a chair, he doesn't. He's a trustee. But how do I get his attention? You're watching at JEIC. How do I get the attention of the chair? Do I raise my hand and move forward? And he calls to be recognized by the chair? So there's ways to do it and adapt it. The guidelines I think you can create on how you want to operate as a board, using the current practices to follow that. So that's a suggestion. You can go about this a lot of different ways as trustees. That's up to you.
Trustee Alvin. So one of those things that I think the parliamentarians tell us and adopting an agenda would be old business and new business. And that gives us the opportunity to finish the old business and to bring up those things that are on our mind or possibly we weren't able to talk to you about beforehand. Considering we don't even get the agenda sometimes until Friday, the last time we did get it Thursday, I appreciate that. But that's one of the things that we're missing. One thing I would like to see is that we come up with the agenda. And I think a lot of that would keep us from getting a little tension there. And we need to come up with what, we need to talk about what's in, and then with that old business and the new business would definitely be helpful, right from the beginning.
And I think what Superintendent Jennings said is that, like, while the agenda is set in stone by Chair Christopherson, if there's something on the agenda that you would like on there, or you have an idea, you can bring it forward. That's the thing, that you can contact him and say, hey, can we have this on the agenda, or can we talk about adding this in this area? Does that make sense? Like, the
Yeah.
agenda can be set by us.
You're saying that I would have to do it beforehand, but
Right.
with the guidelines of Robert's Rules, we could adopt that, the old business and new business during that meeting if we were not able to
Yeah, you can make a
bring that
motion
up.
to-
I mean, at that moment, there's things that come up and what is that new business?
So
I-
you can
it's-
absolutely make a motion to amend the agenda.
Well, we can do that too, we can keep doing that.
As you say, when we had, Mr. Farmer here, we had this discussion and there was discrepancies and disagreements as to how, even what he told us, we weren't practicing. And that's why I wanted to get the parliamentarian, I mean, he told us we should approve our agenda. Other school boards do approve the agenda before we go forward, we don't do that. Add the section under the agenda item where you, add or, add things to it, that's part of an agenda too. Are those the applications of a small board? That's what I wanna get clarification from the parliamentarian. Reports, you guys, I know you all just like the fact that I like to have recommendations, donations, grants, which are recommendations from staff to be put under that section of the, agenda, that type of thing. Should it be where consent, what exactly goes under consent, what doesn't? Cause I think we have some blurred lines, to just use your quote, we've loosely followed it, and I would like to get more specific guidelines as to how that should be done by the Robert Rules of Order, by the parliamentarians, so that we're operating as closely to the way we're supposed to. Now granted, it's not gonna be 100%, because we're a different type of board, but he can give us that guidance. And that's what I'm looking for, because there was disagreement when, Mr. Farmer was here. And he's not an expert, he said he wasn't, he just was a lawyer who knows it. I think our attorney has said that as well, so going to the expert, as we like in education, we like to go to the experts. The ones that's accredited, I'd like to go to him and have him come and give us the specifics as to how we should do it. That's the only thing I'm asking, is just so that we're all under the same tutelage of how an agenda should be presented and how things should be presented, by those rules, so. And that's why I wanted to have him come and pare it down for us.
Well, yeah, our next work session is going to be a furtherance of this, it's going to be a work session in this room. And typically during work sessions, we can invite people in to help us. So he would be another voice at the table. He wouldn't be the person saying you're gonna do this, because we're gonna still have to adopt it as a board.
Right.
But then when we adopt what we're gonna do and how we're gonna act and what's on the agenda generically, if we're gonna have a approval of the agenda and a change of the agenda and all that stuff, well, we'll all agree about that, and that's where we need to get.
Yeah, and that's what I'm asking. I didn't know if it was a motion that you make or
It's not.
a recommendation to you to bring them in as a board. That's
It's
all.
still, I mean, I know you think I have more power, but I don't. I was just elected to be the chair, to try to make everybody happy and to make this soup work, you know? So, it still needs to come through me. And we'll work, and I can talk to Tom Reeder, and then we can just see, be with him and whoever else needs to be sitting at the table. And we just need it, in an hour long, we need to hash through it, just go through it and say, okay, this is what it's gonna look like.
Right.
And so you're not feeling disrespected, and I'm not feeling ambushed, and the kids that are sitting out there aren't going, holy shit, what just happened, and. So.
Democracy.
Yeah.
That was democracy.
Yeah, but like I said before, we live in Natrona County, guys. I mean, I know what's going on the internet and back east and all of this other stuff, but we are a good district, and we are filled with good people, and we need to figure out how to make this work. We need to get team, because there's decisions we're gonna have to make.
Trustee, I think this is just, information that, past work with, when we checked in on, they requested from the other board members, what are some interests you have for a work session? We turned in those interests that we had, and then the board and the staff would work when those could be addressed. And we haven't done that for a while, but that would be an opportunity for all of us to say, well, this is an interest I have, we give it to the chair, and they work it out with time. But, and so this parliamentarian now, who he is, and I don't know what certification you get for a parliamentarian, doesn't mean we have to accept his deal.
Absolutely.
But have him at a work session, if that's what, I just think that was a good process we did, so we all had ideas, we have our passions, we want to do things. And we turned it in, and the chair and the superintendent determined the time and what other, very important thing would come up ahead of that, we would have to look at, but, that's how we did that.
So, I mean, it's just kind of personal between us.
It's not supposed to be.
It's not supposed to be, but it seems like every time I've reached out with an olive branch, somebody's grabbed a hold and beat the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I mean, I came to you and said, if you have something you want on the agenda, and that turned into, I'm not being transparent, I'm working. And it's just, this has got to stop, and I'm trying to figure out a way, this meeting is because of you. I mean, we're here sitting right now because of what happened at our last board meeting, our last work session. It's like, I want to talk about Robert's Rules of Order. It can't just happen overnight. I mean, we have to set up these meetings. I mean, we set up for last week, and the chairman got sick, it's like, but we got flack for that too. I mean, I'm trying, but and I want to bring you guys into the team. I want everybody to have a voice and everybody to be respected, because in the end, we all need to do what's right for the kids. And I would ask that you would stop, you know, or at least quit looking at the worst possibility every time. I'm not trying to sabotage you or trying to, whatever the flavor of the day is. You know, I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to bring us together as a board. I think that's my number one, responsibility as the chair of this board, is to try to figure out a way to make it work and try to build a team that's not, I mean, we're not always gonna agree, but, you know, I mean, I've lost some really big battles with Rita over there. And we fought hard, you know, but we love each other still. I mean, that's what it needs to be. This needs to be a team because the kids are what's important. So I would just ask you guys to, when I do something, or call me personally, or send me a letter so it can get for you or whatever. Quit looking at me as if I'm a devil trying to destroy this district, because I'm not.
Why looking at them like that?
I'm trying to do the best that I can do, try to bring my limited leadership ability, try to make a team here. That's what I'm trying to do. So, you know, I apologize for any hurt feelings I've had, you know, because I'm kind of like Trump that way. When somebody attacks me, I attack right back. I don't have armor that just things bounce off of it. I have what they call active armor. It's an explosion. When you shoot a bullet into me, the bullet comes right back. And I need to figure out a way to, because it's been used against me, not just by you, but by my ex-wife. I mean, it never goes good for me when I let myself get angry. So, but I want you guys to feel comfortable. I want you to feel comfortable talking to me. I want you to feel comfortable talking to everybody else. And I know where this came from. It came from that COVID crap, and you know, I was anti-mask. I didn't get vaccinated. I know where all this anger is coming from, but sometimes you just gotta get past that anger. I mean, we have to do what's right for these kids. I mean, we just have to get past it. So please, I mean, help. This meeting's for you, the next work session's for you. We're gonna go through all of this stuff. But let's have especially when there's kids there. Just another thing that we've decided to do, I mean, the first thing always is the celebrations. The celebrations for those kids. And we have students sitting out in the audience. If you have a problem or anything, we'll hear it, but let's do the celebrations first. I mean, let's get to the celebrations, let the kids lead, let everybody else move in there. And then if we wanna argue and everything, that's great. But let's get to the celebrations, because, you know, it's just not the time to bring up, our problems. I don't wanna wash the dirty laundry in front of the students.
So, a lot of points. So, the biggest point is, once we establish professionalism here, everyone can be heard. And no one will feel like, they're being attacked. Second of all, your olive branch was an olive branch to how you felt that was. So you can't put what you felt it was onto me.
I'm not.
Okay?
I'm just saying.
And it was not an olive branch. And to say that this was all for us, this should have been done in the work session. That's what this was supposed to be.
And there's a work session coming.
And so that's, well, hold on, we're not going anywhere. And so, when you come into a meeting and you're being told twice, and then that's what we're gonna be working on, and then you're ambushed with Brian from Wyoming School Board Association to talk to you about how to be courteous, and that the meeting is for you, how to learn how to be courteous, is disrespectful.
Well, disrespectful is standing up and walking out of the.
Okay.
This is just getting out of hand.
But we do have all different opinions, we all have
It's
different.
another olive branch I put out there, and once
okay.
again, it's happening, so.
So I just wanna put out there that none of us, we cannot, an individual on this board does not pass a policy or do anything by themselves. You have to have 5. So I haven't seen any, effort to network with the rest of us. And that's something that has happened prior boards. And it doesn't hurt if you have, so if I have a passion and I believe something, you know, I'll talk to colleagues on the board and I'll explain what I want. I won't just bring it up in the board meeting cold turkey. So I think it's important that we all try as individual board members to network with each other. So when we enter that board meeting, we understand where we're coming from, what our issue is and what our passion is. And I think it's important to try to network with all members of the board rather than to just, bring up whether it's your political or religious or whatever beliefs at the end of the board with comments.
I really appreciate what's all been said here today, and I really do think that we're gonna go ahead and close up this section. There's definitely gonna be some more time to talk about stuff. I really love what you said, but I will, about how this meeting, you know, the purpose of it was for all of us. I will specify for myself especially, like this stuff never